like wait. Oh, good. Okay. So yeah. Um, as I was saying, these are different resources that can bring technology into your classroom, focusing on mobile devices because most people have mobile device technology. I'll be showing you warm-up activities, which are like 5 to 10 minute activities, lesson activities, which are longer. Those will be closer to, I want to say 25 to 30 minutes. Discussion / speaking club resources for our third section of the presentation. And then I'll do a quick move into the appendix where I have a bunch of other things that I have found helpful in my teaching that you guys can have too. So yeah, I'm a very interactive type of presenter. So if you have any questions throughout any part of the presentation, please just feel free to go off mute and say that you have a question. I can't see the chat or anything, so you'll have to speak up, which will be exciting. All right, so because this presentation is going to be essentially just a list of activities and resources, here is the, what's the word? QR code to download this presentation. All of the resources that are included in the presentation are linked. So once you have this kind of slide deck in your Google Drive or in your files, you can use it whenever. So yeah, I'll just wait for a couple minutes while people scan the QR code, and then I'll move on. Yeah, do what you gotta do. Maybe I'll figure out how to send the link into the chat. I feel like that would also be really helpful. All right. Okay. So I'm going to move on now, but I'll bring the QR code back at the end of the presentation. Yay. Okay. So we're going to start off with some warm-up activities. There are many different tools that you can use to kind of get classroom engagement. The first of these resources is called Mentimeter. So Mentimeter is a free crowdsourcing platform and website. You make an account, it's all free. Essentially, you have a question or a series of questions that you put on the screen, and all of your students can use their phone to answer the questions and put in their opinion, and it'll show up on the screen. So, yeah, okay, you can see my cursor. So here is an example of what a student's phone would look like. And depending on what they answer, say they say the office, it would show up on the big screen in your classroom. So that is the first one. I find it really helpful to engage shyer students. And it's a good icebreaker activity. So something that you implement in the first couple of minutes of a class. All right. So moving on. Kahoot! All right, show of hands. Who knows Kahoot? Raise your hand. Okay. So Kahoot is a kind of popular source. You can create English trivia games. There are many different kind of pre-made quizzes and games that they have already. So if you want to play a game and have all of your students work on present perfect, you can either find or make your own game that gives examples of present perfect or examples of sentences or gap fill or closed readings, and they can find those. So here I have listed some pre-existing games that have been made in Kahoot. And these are a little bit more grammar focused. It works in the same way as Mentimeter, the resource that I just showed you. On a computer screen or on a like presentation board, you would have the game for Kahoot show up, and then all of your students would be able to answer the questions on their phone. I like using this game as a warm-up activity in grammar. For the first, I want to say like 12 to 15 minutes of class, especially if it's a little bit later into the semester and all my students are really tired. A game gets everybody excited again, because even the shy students want to win, you know, like they'll still participate. All right. So the third resource is called the Anki app. So this is a flashcard app, really good for learning vocabulary. You basically put in vocab words that you want to learn, and you can flip through them electronically. The Anki app is very, very popular in the US for medical students, which is why I know about it, because medical students have to memorize so much information. The people who developed this app added artificial intelligence technology to make it easier to like memorize whatever they need to memorize. Essentially, like based on research that we know about how human memory works, they've developed an algorithm in this flashcard app that makes it so the things that you remember quicker, they go back in the deck. The things that take you longer to remember, it comes more frequently. It's tailored to whatever your learning style is. Anki, in addition to being a really great app, is also gamified. So basically, like whenever you get a word right, there's a little like ding. And you feel like you just feel good that you've gotten that word correct. What I have done in the past is take this app and have my students kind of do it in the beginning of class for 5 minutes every single day. So vocabulary learning is really just a matter of getting into the habit, right? So if I put aside time at the beginning of class every single day for 5 minutes, people will like learn the vocabulary words, and by the end of 1 or 2 weeks, they'll have that whole set easily memorized. It's fun, it's easy, and of course, like all of the resources that are in this PowerPoint, it's free or there's like a free version. So yeah. So those are like the warm-up activities so far. Does anybody have any questions about like what we've talked about? No. Yay! Okay, yay. Very cool. Okay. Next, we're going to move on to lesson activities. So I'm going to show you 3 kind of lesson activities that you could just use in your classroom. The first is about pronunciation practice. So before I get into this, I always want to emphasize that, especially for younger learners, and folks who are like early in their English learning like journey, English is very varied. That's what part of what makes it cool is that in the US by itself, you will be able to find 50 different accents because every single state has their own accent. The video's loading. I'm not gonna play the video, but like there is a YouTube video you can show called like 50 people show us their state's accents. And it just is an example of the diversity of speech that you have in the States. I think it's like, for me, important to emphasize, especially to folks who are a little bit more scared to speak, that there is a difference between having an accent and having poor pronunciation. Everyone's going to have an accent. Like that's normal. It's part of what makes you as a person like interesting. But pronunciation is still important to focus on because we need to be understandable when we try and communicate to each other. So I just have this little like video in the beginning just to show and reduce like fears around speaking. There's a fun quiz that you can take actually with the New York Times, which is here on the right side. If you were someone from the US, what accent would you have? What American accent you would have? And like most of my students took this quiz and they're from Michigan. That's fun. A little bit kind of random, but yeah, I think it's just a really fun kind of tool to use.
I never thought I had.
Let's move on. All right, so then when you get into pronunciation practice, there are like specific challenges when you are a Kazakh to English speaker and a Russian to English speaker. And there are different sentences that you can practice saying to specifically target those challenges. One way to check your pronunciation in a really kind of low bandwidth, straightforward way is to see if you can get these sentences correct when you speak into your phone. So everybody has a translator app, right? What I've sometimes encouraged is having my students like literally very simple, open their translator app and then try and speak these sentences into the translator and see if it comes up correctly. Depending on what you want to focus on, there are specific sentences that you can give. So for example, like consonant sounds can be tricky, like the W sound. Tell your students to do that first one, like the weather was windy and wild as Wendy walked, and have them speak it into the translator and see if it comes up as weather or something else. Similarly, for Russian to English speakers, there are challenges and common pronunciation difficulties. And there are also other sentences that you can focus on. So like the V sound versus the B sound, right? Right over here. Like Vicky's very vocal about her valuable violin. And you really just kind of drill it in there. If you want to have a more general type of practice, you can go on and do something a little bit more open world with authentic materials. So literally, like when I was learning Russian, I would go into Google Maps, like here. I would go to Street View and I dropped myself off like in Pavlodar. And I would walk around Pavlodar to all the different stores. And I would just try and read and pronounce the signs that I would see. And when I spoke them correctly into my translator, like apteka, the word would pop up and I'd be like, yeah, I know that I'm right. This is fantastic. It's very great and very fun. You can relate it to, like tourism, cultural exchange. Here, for example, you could walk through Times Square, look at the many advertisements that are in Times Square, and have your students read off the advertisements, see if it pops up correctly, if they pronounce it correctly in the translator app. What you can also do, and this is also very fun, is use pronunciation poems. So pronunciation poems are, yeah, basically what the name says. They're poems that were created to help you with pronunciation. Here's an example of a great one. once folks are ready to take on like larger challenges, you can give them a poem and see how they can do it. So I'll read the first couple of, I'll read this poem. It's a little tricky for me too. Okay, so just compare heart, beard, and herd, dies and diet, lord and word, sword and sward, retain and Britain, mind the latter how it's written. Now I surely will not plague you with such words as plaque and ague, but be careful how you speak, say break and streak, but bleak, say break and stake, but bleak and streak, cloven, oven, how and low, script, receipt, show, poem, and toe. Tricky, but very fun. And here on the left are a couple other more poems that are designed kind of for practice. They're helpful, it focuses on emphasis of certain words, and it's a little bit silly. So yeah. If you need additional phrases for practice, I've included some links for Russian speakers specifically, for Kazakh speakers specifically, and if you're a little bit more technologically savvy, here are some commands that you can put into ChatGPT, and it'll give you back tailored phrases that you can use for this type of exercise, for the translator exercise. I will say, if you use ChatGPT, please be careful. It is still a program in progress, which means that the information it gives you, it's not going to be 100% accurate all of the time. You still need to check what the program gives you back, because it's still in drafts form. Okay. All right. Lesson number 2 is about circumlocution. So many of my students tell me that they feel like they don't know how to speak English because they have a really short vocabulary or they don't know specific words. And I like doing this lesson early on because it communicates that even if you don't know a word or if I don't know a word, I can still understand what you mean or what you're saying. For example, oh, I don't really have much around me. Hold on. Okay. This is a hat. Okay. If I'm like an alien from Earth, not from Earth, right? I don't know what anything is. And I ask my students like what this is. They'll say, oh, it's like a hat. And I'll be like, but I don't know what a hat is. And they'll say, oh, okay. It's a thing that you put on your head. You wear it in the summer. It's a thing that protects you from the sun. You put it on your head. And I'll say, okay, I understand what you mean. Even though I don't know like the specific term that you're using, I still know what you're talking about. That kind of concept to use many words to explain one word is called circumlocution. It's something that students can use to advance speaking skills, even when they don't have like that much of a vocabulary. Basically, the idea is that you can still kind of express to me what you're trying to say by explaining what something looks like or something's purpose. So here are a couple of sentence starters. Whenever someone forgets a word, I say, and they go to reach out their phone and get Google Translate. I'm like, no, hold on. Try and explain to me like what you were trying to say. And here are like sentences that you can like drill into your students, make your students learn them by heart. Pronouns, a hat, it is a thing that you wear. A teacher, it is a person like who teaches. A university, it is a place where you study, etc., etc., etc. So, the easiest way to practice this type of skill is with a game called Heads Up. Also, you may know it as Crocodile. This game is very fun. It's free. You basically show kind of like a word on your forehead, and other students have to try and get you to say it. It is very, very fun playing this game. Very easy to get people to communicate and to participate. A second way that you can practice circumlocution is with an app called Alias. Alias is kind of the flipped version of Crocodile. It's the same, it's a similar game style. It's also a free app. Basically for Alias, one person has a word that they're trying to explain to get other people to say it. All right. So the third and final section, the final lesson type that I give you for the section will be about authentic materials. So this is a little bit more broader. It's more places where you can find basically pre-made lesson plans or just really helpful resources. Authentic materials are materials in kind of like real life that have been used in the world that you can integrate into your lessons. Some of them are not made specifically for English, but it's like a newspaper, right? Like books, music, things like that. So the first resource I'm going to give you is called americanenglish.state.gov. So this is a really helpful resource. Most of you are probably familiar with this already, but the US government actually collects resources for English teachers to use in Kazakhstan. There are lesson plans that are pre-made that focus on whatever skill you want to focus on. So speaking, reading, writing, listening. There are games that you can print from online, cut them out and use. There are kind of cultural materials. So a list of American songs, recommended books, explanations of holidays and traditions. And there are other kind of spaces and just like miscellaneous materials. So here you can kind of see there's like dictionaries. There are guides for how to start like a speaking club. There's the color vowel chart right over here, and dialogues that you can use for every day. And because americanenglish.state.gov is supposed to be an interactive resource, if you have pedagogy that you think was really helpful, you can submit it to americanenglish.state.gov. And every 3 or 4 months, there is a magazine, a journal that is published by the Department of State that shows your pedagogy and other materials that have been submitted by you that then gets distributed to all of the American corners across Kazakhstan. So it's also a good way to kind of share the information that you've learned as a teacher and spread them to the world. Cool. The second resource is called Breaking News English. I love this resource. It is one of my favorites. So like I really like bringing current events into the classroom and having my students discuss them. This website will take a recent news article, for example, the one here, New Zealand loses Manuka honey trademark battle. And it'll take that news article and rewrite it depending on the level of English of your students. So it'll rewrite it to level 0 English, level 1, level 2, and level 3. But wait, there's more. Breaking News English also creates a bunch of lessons and activities that you can use based on the news article. So for every news article, you also have like close reading passages, fill in the blanks, word sorts, crosswords. There are like reading comprehension, discussion questions, writing tasks, essays. It just generates a bunch of pre-made activities that you can use already that's related to this article. Very helpful. And this site updates every week with about like two more news lessons. I like it a lot. I'm a big fan. The next resource I would like to share. Oh man, I fell. That's my bad. Hey. So, man, online learning is always so tricky. All right, so the next resource I would like to share with all of you is called HelloTalk. You're probably familiar with any sort of like this type of app. Sometimes it's Tandem, sometimes it's something else. HelloTalk lets you connect with native speakers. You become friends with them. They practice maybe their Russian or their Kazakh with you, and you practice your English with them. Most folks, once you have like A2 level English, you can communicate with native speakers. It is a very, I want to say, like low stress and low pressure way to get your practice and also like really just build your confidence. Some of the best conversations or like the funnest conversations that I've had since coming here have been with folks that just don't know that much English. Like it's been with like taxi drivers, for example, where they're like, oh, like, let me show you like the bits of English that I know. And it's a good time. So I really would kind of encourage this type of tool, especially if your students seem or want to and seem excited to talk to folks. And finally, this is the free learning list. So English is also used for other things, right? And the English information space is enormous. You can explore other interests, maybe in art, in sports, in science, and you can explore those subjects in the English language. If you have students that are really interested in like dinosaurs, for example, you can find entire videos, specifically in Crash Course on YouTube, that gives you information on dinosaurs in English. It's a great way to use English in a way that isn't solely in the classroom. You can use it to learn other things that you are interested in. Everything in the free learning list is free, and they are very popular resources. Like I myself have used Khan Academy when I was in school. I've used Crash Course when I was in university. They're very common and very popular sources that like English speaking country people also use. Yeah. All right. So our last section will be a little bit quick, but here are resources that I had and used and really liked a lot when I was creating my speaking clubs or creating my discussion clubs. These are two major links that are helpful. There are many, many discussion questions that you can use, and they are sorted by topic. So the topics are a little bit broader in the second one, but you can have discussion topics and speaking club topics related to hobbies, sports, how do you want to spend your money, success and failure, nostalgia. Very, very helpful. What I use kind of in partnership with the last resource is something called the random wheel generator. So unfortunately, maybe I can show you now. Can you still see my screen? Oh, brilliant. Okay. So this is a random wheel generator. I use, discussion and speaking a lot in my classes. And so to make my students feel kind of not overwhelmed by the number of questions that I have for them, I put the questions into this wheel. You click it. And it brings up a question, very straightforward. I like this a lot because like my students can get through more questions kind of in a lesson and speak more English as a result. It's less stressful than having just all of the questions like in a list on a piece of paper. You can create your own. Like if I were to do that, it's a very, very easy resource. You just add your questions here, like, what is your name? What is your age? Like city, etc. And very, very easy to share. All right, let me get back. Cool. Ooh. All right. So that is most of what I have for you in the main part of the presentation. I will very quickly show you some of the additional resources that I added into the appendix. These are not related to using mobile devices, but are just resources that I found to be really helpful. I'm gonna flip through them really quickly. I don't know, you've all probably seen this, but I like emphasizing that if there are like a certain number of hours you have to hit in order to get from one level of English to another level. So if you really take the number of hours that you want to get to C1 and you're only B1, for example, you can take the 200 plus 200, 400 hours, divide that by week, see how many days, how many hours per day that you need to practice, etc. Everybody knows about the British Council. There are some self-guided video lessons that you can use. Similarly, pronunciation workshops that are online. Jeopardy Labs is something that I use for trivia games, phrasal verbs, idioms, things like that. You can make your own game or you can use pre-made games like the examples that I've included on the right here. If you have some artists in your classrooms, Digital Theater is a free resource that you can use to watch modern performances of Shakespeare or other really famous English and British playwrights. Interviews of famous American stars. And yeah, so I will just kind of hover on this slide in case there are still folks that need to grab the PowerPoint, but that is my presentation. So thank you all very much. So are there any questions that anyone may have about my presentation? And please do come off mute because I cannot see the chat.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you a lot for presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Just
Happy to help.
go on because you managed to demonstrate the application for both language practicing and to develop communication, but not just for testing the grammar and grammar structure. Thanks a lot. So I guess all your questions for communication are really helpful.
Happy to hear it.
Emily,
Hi.
can you hear? Yeah. Hello.
Yes.
Nice to see you again. And
Oh my
one of
God.
our has the question.
Hello? Hello, can you tell us about these apps? Are they free from us?
Yes. So
All the apps are free. Or
yeah, all of the apps, all of the resources that I have showed you in this PowerPoint are free. or they have a free version. Yeah. That would be rude if it wasn't free. Thank you for your question.
Hello, Emily. We have a question from Ural.
Yeah, what's up?
Hi, Emily. Thanks a lot for sharing with us this useful information. My question is, how would you normally give feedback to your students when you have a speaking class? Because I know it's a hard skill. It's not an easy skill because it's a productive skill. It's not so easy as reading. And usually I try to find some way to give a feedback so that not to demotivate people, especially when you have adults in your classes. So how would you normally give the feedback? Do you give the feedback in the middle of the class or at the end of the class? Can you please share?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I'll say two things about that. The first is one of the reasons why I really like the translator app activity is because students fix their own mistakes when they see that it's not working. So they kind of are aware of the way they sound and the shapes that their mouth makes, and they fix that by themselves. The second thing though, because, you know, like we have speaking exams, right? I prefer to give feedback privately and maybe at the end of class. Part of that is because like I'm not very good at languages personally. It takes me a long time to get my mouth to make the right vowel sound, especially in Kazakh, which there are vowels in Kazakh that we don't have in English. And so I need criticism, right? I like need feedback on what I'm saying, but not in front of the whole class. The other thing I will say is if there are common speaking difficulties, like the TH sound, like t, or past tense for verbs, like I walked, not I walked. You can take that and tell the whole class, like in a general way, to fix this type of pronunciation problem. So sometimes I have stopped discussion in the middle of class and I have like gone to the front and I've said like, some of you are making this pronunciation error where you're saying close, you're saying closes and not close, for example. So in general, that's what I try and do. But it's tricky, like it's really tricky. Really good question though.
Hello,
Hi.
we are from Akhtibia. I'd like to know about Mentimeter. Usually we use Mentimeter for the feedback at the end of the lesson. And my question is, in what part of the lesson do you use Mentimeter?
Yeah, that's really cool that you use it for feedback. I like that a lot. You can use it for both. It's a flexible tool. So sometimes I will use it for warm up, or I'll use it at the very end. If I wanted to do like warm up, for example, I would have on the board a word cloud, and I would say, give me as many synonyms as you can for the word like good. And then everyone would like type into their phone like positive, amazing, things like that.
Emily, good afternoon. We are from Pavlodar.
Pavlodar, okay.
We are happy to see you and we appreciate your contribution to education in our region. We are glad to see that you have survived from our severe winters and hot summers. How are you doing now?
I'm good. I'm coming back.
Yeah, are you in the USA now?
Yeah, no, no. Oh my gosh. No,
Ah.
I'm in Oralsk, actually. I'm in
Ah,
Oral, helping out with the
Parиж,
different.
the
Yeah.
place
No.
that you work.
I'm coming back next week.
Will you come to Canada?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. It was very helpful. We are students, really very nice. We have downloaded it and shared. Thank you.
Oh, good. Of course, I'm happy that it's helpful.
Mhm. Thank you very much.
All right. So I think no one has any more questions. All right. So I will, I guess, defer back and end my presentation here. Thank you everyone for attending. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and good luck with the upcoming activities. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Emily.
Thank you. Bye.
Самая позитивная спикер.